Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Being here now in your own silence, it becomes possible for you to see, to understand, and to know directly without the mind that you are aware. Are you aware? Is there anyone who says no? Ask yourself though, is this awareness mine? If you are aware of an object, such as the body, sensation, breathing, an experience, a memory, a projection, if you're aware of an object, you say, I am aware of this. I am aware of this sensation. I can feel this. I can think this thought. But whose awareness is it? Through the long habit of conditioning and out of simplicity, you say, I am aware. I am aware of this. I am aware of that. I know this. I know that. I think this. I think that. I taste this. I taste that. I like this. I don't like that. All of this I referencing, in this case, however, is referenced through the body. So the perception that colors all the others is that you are the body. I am the body. And of course, in this case, I'm not just talking about the body, I'm talking about the body-mind complex, which, as you may have noticed, comes all of a piece. You can see thoughts go through the mind, but it is very difficult to perceive the mind in its pure form without referencing the body. In other words, it's very difficult to know awareness itself in free space, isn't it? Almost always, when there's the reference to awareness, there's the recognition through the body-mind. So this is natural. This is the way of it. And even Sri Ramana said, simply know that you exist. And the first reference point for knowing that you exist is the body-mind complex, because that's what you are familiar with. And this is the place in which the I, which rises in free space, takes up residence. First thing in the morning. As soon as waking consciousness comes, as soon as dream consciousness comes, there's a recognition. I am here in some way, maybe not a conscious thought. There's a recognition. I'm here. I am awake now. I've woken up. But this is almost entirely in reference to the body experience, to the feeling of the sensation of the body on the bed, of the head on the pillow. You slept well, you didn't sleep well, all of this. This is all referenced to the body. So the first understanding or misconception, maybe is a better way to put it, is that you are the body. But if you ask yourself the question, whose awareness is this? First knowing, of course, I am aware, right? I mean, this is the prerequisite for that. You have to first know, I am aware. You can ask yourself the question, am I aware at any time during the day, any place you are, whatever your activity, whatever your inactivity, whatever you're experiencing at that moment or not experiencing at that moment, whether it's emptiness or it's activity, whether it's movement or stillness, you can always bring the recollection am I aware, into being. And of course, the answer will be yes. You know that you are aware. This is the foundation for the connection to the ever-present and eternal self. The self is always here. You are always that. This is only realized, however, when you break this bond to the idea that I am the body, or I am the mind, or I am these thoughts, or I am these experiences, or I am these memories, or I am this activity, or I am this stillness, I am the meditator. All these bonds of identification with the body-mind need to just be dropped. But it's not a simple thing to do when there's a lot of conditioning, when this conditioning has been going on for decades or lifetimes. This is such a subtle recognition that very often we jump over or pass over the recognition, I am aware, very quickly into whatever objects are there. You've had this experience maybe? Before you realize that you are lost in something, sensation in the body, pain, thinking, memory, and you're not really knowing that even in this moment of pain, of thinking, of experiencing, of remembering, you are aware. You have completely stepped over it. And this is why it becomes necessary and important to be able to recollect as a form of sadhana throughout the day that you are aware. Bhagavan recommended to ask the question, who am I? This, of course, is this sadhana is directed toward withdrawing the attention from the object and turning it back toward the source, which is the self, or being consciousness. This is his recommendation. One can also ask, am I aware? The reason that I like to share this with you is that for me and over many years for many others, this has been actually a shortcut. The question, who am I even, is very direct. It's referred to as the direct path. But some people are not really able to penetrate through the I or through the I experience. And so after a while, they give up with this form of the inquiry. If you have been successful with this form of the inquiry, keep going. You've probably dropped it by now, and you're just awareness itself. But if you've not been able to penetrate with this question, who am I? Then ask yourself, am I aware? Because I want you to notice that if I ask you in this moment, are you aware? There's not a referencing toward I or me. There's a direct looking. It's this long. You don't need a long time. You know, yes, I am aware. Or yes, awareness is here. Okay? So you know this. Beyond a doubt, I am here. Awareness is here. The difference between the yoni and the jiva, the ordinary person, is that the yoni is clearly aware that when he or she says, yes, I am aware, what is being referenced is awareness itself. Without me, without referencing through the body-mind idea, or I am the body idea. There is this direct perception that awareness is here. And there's no need to reference to me. The jiva, on the other hand, or the ordinary being before realization, will reference through the body-mind and will, in order to know that you are aware, you will check in with some sensation. You will check in with the breath. You will check in to see if the mind is empty or if there's a thought in the mind. Or you will reference, because as soon as I say, are you aware? You will become aware of awareness. Same thing is happening as when you do the inquiry, however. Attention is turning from an object through this question toward the source of being consciousness in the heart. So this method can help you if you have a tendency through asking the question, who am I, to get stuck in some imaginary or figurative sense of the word I, or body-mind sense of the I. You can ask, is awareness here? Yes. You know this immediately, and there's no need to reference the I. So this is why I recommend this. There's absolutely no need to reference the I. Question whether the I is real or false. Of course, the I is both real and false, isn't it? As awareness itself, it is simply I. There's no reference to the body-mind. It is simply the direct perception that existence is here, awareness is here. And it can have this resonance like a breath, like a heartbeat. I. This was Bhagavan's recommendation. I. So become aware of the current which pulsates through the body and mind, not as the body and mind. So it's beyond that in a way, but it pulsates as I. Maybe you can see it now. If you are listening, are you able to perceive now this current, this heartbeat within yourself which says, I. Having recollected this I, or having recollected that you are aware, or awareness is here, now you are in the true sense of I. This is not I am male, I am female, I am old, I am young, I am rich, I am poor, I have this memory, I have that memory, I am thinking, I am the thinker, I am the meditator. This is the false sense of I. The reason I say this is the false sense of I is that this false sense of I requires that there be a subject, me, that is looking at an object. So this is why it's referred to as the illusory. But as soon as you come to this direct perception of I, or this direct awareness, that which is aware that it is aware. Now you are in the true self, the true recollection of who you are as being consciousness, as awareness itself. So then your sadhana can become the constant and continuous remembrance in every moment, through every kind of activity, that that which is aware is here now. This becomes the firm foundation on which direct perception of the self rests. For some of you, this direct perception will come as a gradual opening. Slowly, over days, weeks, months, and years, you will feel the heart open. You will simply be aware. Your old doubts and fears will dissolve, and you will simply find that you are here as awareness itself, no longer simply a body, a mind, a bundle of thoughts and memories, but rather direct perception of that which is, and sees that which is in all. For others of you, There may be a moment, like a flash of lightning in the dark sky, in which you see, beyond any doubt, that which is aware is here now. This is the foundation experience of Nisargadatta Maharaj when he said, "And I am that." And this is the experience that can happen for many people in practice of sadhana. So whether it comes for you suddenly or it comes for you gradually, continue throughout your day, throughout your activity, whether you are sitting still or you are moving, you are having a meal, walking down the street. If you know that awareness is here, in that moment, you know who you are. And as you do this more and more, you will stop interfering with your own wisdom, which is what the mind does when it relates to itself as a body. It interferes with the direct knowing of the simple wisdom. That which is aware is here now. Interferes with the simple joy that all of this is that. Tries to separate it, understand it, look for it, seek it, search for it, all the while not realizing that it is it, that what it has been looking for all of this time is here. It is your very nature as being, consciousness, and bliss. All right, we have a small recording device on a stick here, so if you'd like to speak with me or remove some doubt you might have, just ask for this small stick and we'll pass it to you.
Good morning, Rishi.
Good morning, Anna.
Thank you for what you just said. And I'm wondering, am I the only one? You just mentioned, even though we have consciousness, awareness inside of us, but you said the word, we have to search for it. And
Yes.
sometimes I have to admit, I'm tired about searching.
Yes, very good.
So, okay, so I'm not the only one.
Very good.
Good.
You're not only are you not the only one, actually there are some people who are not yet tired of searching.
Okay. Well, I am a little bit, I have to admit. Like sometimes, not always. But sometimes it just feels like, just let's drop everything and just let's go back to the craziness maybe, but which is also fun.
That's interesting. That's your first move? Is if you drop everything, you go back to the craziness?
Well, because I do remember how it was before, and I do remember this very heavy monkey mind, and so, but somehow it feels like I have this feeling that I'm somehow in the middle of a process. So going back is not really what I want to, but in the meantime, to keep searching is, as said, sometimes tiring. So is it like a normal thing? Am I the
Yeah.
only one? Oh,
No, this is not any normal. I really, it's normal in terms of sadhana process. Okay, let's be clear about that. This is normal in terms of sadhana process, because it is really imperative that you come to this place of exhaustion. This is not something people like to hear. Everything in spiritual life is supposed to be flowery and blissful and enjoyable and pleasant. But in a way, it can be said that true spiritual life does not start until you are exhausted with the search. Before then, you are still living a form of spiritual life. In other words, you have realized that the source of suffering is in that outward momentum. So you have started to withdraw from whatever that craziness was from the years before, right? You've withdrawn from that.
yeah.
So the only thing that would possibly send you back to that is some belief that you're going there because it's familiar. It's something that, as difficult and as horrible as it seemed at the time or afterwards, you have to go back there because it's what you know. So the sense of familiarity is there. Well, this is because it becomes really difficult when this sense of exhaustion comes to hang out in the uncertainty or the free fall of empty space. But please don't go back. If you need to go back, understand that awareness is still there. You know, you haven't lost awareness because you go back and try that dance again. It's just going to take you a long way around. If you are sitting in this room, I promise you, you cannot go back to that way of life. You have brought yourself all the way to this place, all the way to the end of the search at this point. If you want to go back, you can go back, but you will not forget what brought you here. And eventually you'll come back. I'm very familiar. I see faces that have come 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago. Yeah. And they come again and they are exhausted again from going back into the play. And they say, I tried to stay away, but I couldn't. I had to come back. I don't know what I'm here for. I don't know why I'm here. It's all failed. So this is quite a common experience. There's a direction that I first heard from one of my Theravadan teachers, I believe. And she said, practice until you can't go forward, until you can't go back, until you can't stay the same.
Until you can't stay the same? What does that mean?
This might be your edge. Until you can't stay the same means I am exhausted. In other words, you've kept this search up for a long time. You've been through lots of sadhana. You've been through lots of practices. You've been through maybe several teachers. You've been through a lot of different things. And now you have said, I don't know what to do. I only know I cannot go forward. I cannot go back. I cannot remain the same in this desperation, in this sense of failure, in this sense of defeat. Because this is the right moment for saying to life itself, for saying to Bhagavan, for saying to Arunachala, you do it. I am exhausted. And you don't want to stay the same, right? You don't want to go back to where you were before. You don't even want to be where you are now. All of this is referencing still to the me notion. So if you say, I don't want to go forward, there's a me involved. I don't want to go back, there is a me involved. I don't want to stay the same, there is a me involved, right? So the pointer, the teaching is, that is all illusory. But the mind doesn't know what to do with it, right? You can ask beyond the mind, show me what is real. I'm finished. No more sadhana, no more meditation, no more japa, No more mantra. I quit. You do it. And then keep quiet. See, this is Bhagavan's recommendation. This is the most valuable recommendation. Once you quit, once you have failed, once you are defeated as a personality, then you can say, Arunachala, you do it. Bhagavan, you do it. Life, you do it. And then remain silent. The potential for your own inner silence is there now, because you're not willing to follow the mind anymore. So dive into that.
So this is when we go back to the word of surrender.
Yes.
Mm.
You have already surrendered. You've already said, I just want to quit. I'm offering you an option, an alternative to going back to what you did before, to what you knew before, because it's familiar. Now, there's another option, which is essentially make no move, but sink into the silence of your own boredom, you can say. Sink into the silence of your own recognition that you cannot go forward, you cannot go back, and you cannot stay the same. So what alternative is there? This is a critical tipping point. So I want to reassure you, because you're asking this question, is this normal? Is this common? It's not only normal and common, it's much more than that. It's a tipping point. At this moment, you have the opportunity to fall completely and directly into your own silence of being. To do this, you must trust. This is the surrender piece. So now you must trust that what brought you here to this moment has not made a mistake. And it will not make a mistake in the future. But you're not willing to use the mind to try to figure that out. So this is the surrender piece. You're surrendering what? You're surrendering mind. You're surrendering false knowing, false knowledge. You're putting everything down and saying, even when everything is down, even when I don't do anything, I am aware. So I will simply remain aware. This will tip that fulcrum point and you will slip into silence.
I guess, as I already mentioned it before, this word, the fact of surrender, is something that is a bit tricky for me.
Then don't surrender, just quit.
Yeah.
Just quit everything that came before, right? Don't let the mind get caught in concepts. That's what I'm saying. That's why the reason I say that to you. Don't let the mind get caught in the concept of quitting or surrendering. Understand that where I'm pointing at is the silence itself, not some conceptual understanding of what you should be doing. See, that's the activity of the mind that you're really tired of.
Yeah.
So just quit. Right now, not later, right now.
And just remaining silent.
Remaining silent in the sense that you already are silent. If I ask you, are you aware? You say,
yes, I am.
yes. You say, yes. Is there anything behind that awareness but silence? Is there anything there?
No.
No, of course not. You can see it directly, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to point it out. Now stay there. That's the hard part.
Exactly.
Because the mind wants to interfere. Yeah, but don't become defeated so quickly. Don't so quickly go, yeah, but that's the hard part. So, meaning it's not possible for me, right? That's a belief. That's another conceptual reality. Stay here.
Okay.
Are you aware?
Yes.
What's behind it?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Are
you comfortable with the concept of nothing?
Yes, I am.
Very good. Then stay there. I call it silence, you call it nothing, but stay there. Because when that concept is gone, you are simply here. Are you not? Drop that concept of nothing.
No, I'm good with that by
You are
dropping. Yeah, totally. But I am right now, but in 5 minutes, not sure.
But see, this is conditioning, so what?
I have to
If you
drop.
know that's conditioning, so what? The question just renews itself.
Yeah.
Are you aware? Am I aware? So know that that's conditioning, see it, that's conditioning, but don't give it any more energy, don't give it any more attention.
Right.
Attention is the food of those concepts. Attention is the food of that conditioning, right? It's what fuels it. So don't give that any more attention. That doesn't mean that it doesn't rise and fall. But if you give it attention, it rises, spins around, does this and that, causes all sorts of trouble, gets you all identified, and it takes a while for it to disintegrate out of boredom with that activity. If you don't feed it, if you don't give it food, it rises. It has no food. It has no energy. There's no self-radiance in any thought. There's only self-radiance in the heart of being. You see? This self-radiance is continuous. That is not in any of those concepts or any of that conditioning. So if it's not fed through identification, then it will dissolve quickly. So then it's just a rising phenomenon, spinning around for a bit and dropping. And interestingly enough, when you get really good at not feeding that, things rise, they find no food available, they fall. Their duration is not long, it's short.
I see.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
I will do so.
Yeah. And if something temporarily catches you or catches you for a moment, right away, bring the question again. Am I aware? Yes. So then attention has come back to the awareness, not to the object. You see, that's the reason to do that. Come back to the awareness itself, and then the object will lose its energy and fall. Mind is a really curious thing. Mind has this capacity to fool us into thinking that it can multitask. So we get really good thinking that we're holding on to three things all at the same time, and that we can do all of these things kind of as a multitasking function. But if you are really precise, you are in deep meditation, you can actually see that the mind can move very, very quickly, but it can only do one thing at a time. The Buddha said, one mind moment is possible to observe or delineate 17 different objects in a mind moment. Now, what this tells us is that right now we're sitting in this room. Most of what you are aware of, you are not seeing as an independent object, right? You are here, you know you are here, the body is here, others are here, but everything else is sort of way off in the background. And yet, what's happening in a mind moment, the reason you think it's all happening simultaneously is that in a mind moment, the mind is actually very quickly, 17 times in a moment, scanning the area around and selecting only those things which are most interesting or most intense. This is how we get addicted to conditioning, we get addicted to emotions, because we favor the things which are most intense. So what you can see in this deep practice of presence is that it's not necessary for you to pay attention to all of the objects. Well, what happens if you say it's not necessary for me to pay attention to any of the objects? Just to be aware. Do I die? Do I lose the sense of living? Do I lose having any interests at all? No, of course not. Because the natural activity of the mind is to be aware of a multiple number of objects all at the same time, and then to select out the ones that feel most important at that moment, whether they are pleasurable or painful. Some of us derive a great deal of pleasure from our pain, whether it's emotional or physical or whatever. And so we tend toward those objects which cause us to become engaged. They hook us like bait on a fishing line, right? But we don't have to go there. You can know this in a moment or you can spend many years in meditation seeing all of this if you're interested in that particular tour. I'm suggesting to you, though, that you can just know that you are aware. You can trust the teachings, the sages, the saints over many, many millennium that have said, if you are aware, if their awareness is here, and that awareness is aware, that it is aware, then you can step directly into being consciousness at some point. You can know, I am here. And you become the deep observer. This is the way to end your suffering, isn't it? If you are the deep observer of everything that's going on around you in mind and body, memory, if you are the deep observer, if you are connected to the deep observer being the one that doesn't move, but is observing all of the activity, if you are connected to the deep observer, your suffering has come to an end. You simply aren't moved by it. It may still be happening. You may still have some physical difficulty. You may have a pain. You may have had an accident. You may have some illness, but you are not moved by that, because the deep observer, who is not you, is the self. And so you're unmoved. If you need to move in reference to something, you will. But that happens naturally. It doesn't happen because you direct something to happen. It happens because there's a natural movement coming through awareness itself, which is aware of all objects in space. Remember that awareness itself is the ground or the open space in which all objects are rising. Prior to the realization of who you are, what you think is that the objects are separate from you, or they are arising in a space of their own. Once recognition has come, then it's seen that you are the space in which all objects are coming and going. And then Bhagavan's teaching, let what comes come and let what goes go, makes sense to you. Now, whether you are in touch with at this moment that you are this vast space of awareness or not, that is the truth of your being. So that is happening for you on some level already. And it's the level on which that is happening which has brought you here, to have your own intuitive knowing confirmed for you. But it's not enough for me to confirm your intuitive knowing. You have to look yourself. You have to know your own nature. So yes, beautiful, get very tired, quit, stop, be defeated, feel like a failure, but keep quiet. Now, in the space of this silent awareness, wisdom can rise. That was a very long answer to a short question.
No, but a beautiful answer. So thank you very much. Thank you. And it definitely gives some energy, let's say, or confidence to keep doing it, or just or remaining in silence.
Very good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course, to do this with any effect, you're going to have to give up the need to be something, to be somebody. You have to give this up. As awareness itself, you are the entirety of it, the whole of it. So now, put down the desire to be an individual or a particular of it. Know yourself to be the whole, not just a piece of it. You are, of course, a piece of it in a certain way, but it's the awareness itself which animates that one and 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 this one. This awareness itself is what is animating all of this to a set, you can say, in a certain way. The awareness which is here is the same as the awareness which is there. Recognition realizes that there is no here or there. There is only awareness. There is only being consciousness. That is all. This being consciousness is not bound by time and space. And everything is floating in it. But even that is too much of a concept, because there really is nothing floating in it. There is only it. And all of this that appears to be dancing is it. Delusion comes when we think that some particle or part of it is separate from it. So now, if I look out and I think I am separate from you, I will look out and see a whole bunch of separate yous sitting around. Same will happen for you. You will look out and see a whole bunch of separate yous sitting around. But in recognition, in deep understanding, what is looking is also what is looking back. So now there is only the self. So you can come here to satsang and do whatever dance you want and tell me what your story is and tell me what you believe and what your conditioning is. And I still can only see the self. I can know you in the same way that you know yourself at the deepest heart center as being consciousness. And no matter how many times you tell me that you are not that, you don't get it, you fall away from it, you are it for a moment and not it for a moment. Tell me as much as you want, I'm still not going to believe it. I'm still going to see you as the self, and I'm going to point you in that direction. This is what my teachers have done for me for a lifetime. So I'm happy to return the favor for them. I'm happy to honor their teaching, honor their transmission by sharing it with you. And there will come a day when you will understand what I'm talking about or what I'm pointing towards. And I won't see you anymore. And I will be happy. Until then, let us be happy and keep being together.
I really enjoyed when you were pointing us toward the pulsation, the I, and I've been sensing and feeling that, but not, you made me more conscious of like what that was. So as we were doing it together, instead of I kept hearing yes, yes, yes. Like everything was just saying yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
and I realized the mind says no a lot, but life is always saying yes. And so I think maybe just for me, one of the sadhanas is, I guess this may have a relationship to surrender, is simply to just be with that yes all the time. Just be always in a relationship with the yes that is always going on in the universe. That was a kind of a fun little twist.
Mm.
what you said, with being exhausted, I know this, of course, also, but it changes. Sometimes I'm exhausted, and then I'm not exhausted, and it was always this: exhausted is something not good, and not exhausted is something good. So, but now everything is. I don't know, it's upside down, and so it sounds exhausted is good, and but
yes,
it's not this exhausted and that's it. It's something. It's
yes.
just going on and changing.
Something is going on and changing. Beautiful. That's it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm not exhausted. Unfortunately.
Now you are just here. Mm. And of course, we're not saying that a feeling or a sense that's of something that we can name exhaustion or whatever. We're not saying that that doesn't come and go from time to time. We're simply saying that that which is aware of that is the foundation of who I am, not whatever the experience is in the body or the mind, whether it's success or failure or exhaustion or energy, or that's the experience of the body mind is going on. It just goes on. And that is not according to who you are. That is according to whatever the prarabdha karma of this body was. Understand that there is something that brought this body into being. In the tradition of Advaita or the tradition of Vedanta, this is called prarabdha karma. So these are the conditions which cause the body to manifest. So once you have realized the nature of being consciousness or the self, the being, it isn't true, not true, this is sometimes reported, that the experience of the sage will be finished and so the body has to die. But we know this isn't true because sages are walking around. We know this is true. That the body-mind experience does not come to an end. And so according to the tradition, according to the scriptures, this is the momentum of prarabdha karma. So that the body has to live out the duration of its existence based on what was the foundation for its coming into being in the first place. So you can say it has the karma of the body. But the sage herself has no karma left. Why? Because the sage is the self. There is no me, there is no you, there is no other. There is not this perception of separation. So therefore there is not this perception of duality. So there is no cause and no effect. There is simply the arising of what is. And this body-mind will go on as long as it's destined to do so. And those of you who have been through a major experience in your life where you came close to death or you had a major illness or something like this, and you came very close to dying and you understood that you were dead in your mind, this is finished, I am done with this. So I don't mean just a cursory, maybe I will die kind of a situation, although that can work as well. Bhagavan didn't actually die, and he had the very, very direct perception that the body was gone and that he was not. And this was his awakening moment. But if you've ever been very close to death yourself, or you've been with someone who's been very close to death, and then they have miraculously or suddenly bounced back and come back from that edge, you see that a very different person comes back. Sometimes no person comes back. And yet the experience of the body-mind goes on. So prarabdha karma will keep us going as long as it's destined to go, but it's not a foundation for the belief that because we still have a body or we still have a mind, that we still feel exhaustion or we still feel success or failure, that is an indication of something about who we are. Be willing to move beyond all of the concepts and know that you are that which is aware. And of course, it's not you. That which is aware that is aware. Kind of a long way of saying it, but it really points directly to the truth of the experience. That which is aware that it is aware. This is the movement beyond duality, isn't it? Or the stillness beyond duality, maybe I should say. It's really hard to describe oneness with duality, using the concepts of duality. But I can see in many of your eyes that you get the point. So now will you just let it remain upside down now and do nothing? Or will there be an urge to turn things back up to their proper position?
No.
Okay, good. Very good. Thank you.
Rishi, you just said before that when you look at us and everywhere, that you see the self everywhere. So maybe it's a private question, but if I may ask, and if you want to answer, how old, even though I know that age is not that important, but like, yeah, how old were you when you actually had this realization? And once you have it, and that would be just a brief second question, once you have this realization, do you have to go back to the question of who am I? Or once you have had the realization, it is forever?
I think there was at least 3 questions in there. Let me see if I
I
can.
thought two.
Let me see if I can keep track of them. So the first one was
The age, because the other day you mentioned that you had the question, you were meditating and suddenly like, who's meditating?
So yeah, I know there's always some curiosity about my personal journey that is not any longer really all that personal. But for me, it's been a gradual awakening throughout my entire life. So there are moments I can point to where something's shifted because of long years of meditation practice and self-inquiry. Without knowing I was doing self-inquiry. You know, we are all doing self-inquiry to some degree, regardless of what tradition we are in. So there were moments when things shifted, and this was a gradual kind of a experience. But also throughout my life, I had the great benefit of ill health to be my teacher. So, and the reason I say great benefit is because it took those physical limitations for me to come to this moment which you are at now, where I said, I'm so tired, I'm exhausted, I can't continue. So surrender and say to life, you do it. If this life is going to go on, you work it out. If not, it doesn't go on. And this was a profound moment because it wasn't just something that was going on in my head. I was physically unable to really continue. And so I had to surrender. And I had to say, if there's going to be my next meal, it will come. If there's going to be my someplace to live, it will come. If there's going to be, it had to be like that for me because I was a tough case. But this moment came and there was this deep level of recognition and surrender that became the experience of living in the moment and not projecting out, getting out of that habit of worry and concern and will I live, will I die, will I not, will my children survive, will they not, what will happen to us. It's like was coming to this place of transcending all of that. And then, so it was like that. That was a profound moment of recognition that came relatively quickly. And this surrender was total. And surprisingly enough, stepping off of that cliff, the next step, somehow the ground came up and picked me up and held me and my children and took care of our financial support and took care of everything that we needed for many years after that. But there was still this profound doubt that was lingering in the background, always, about. So I was continuing sadhana, continuing to practice. I had the time, the energy. Sometimes I had the energy. Other times I was just exhausted and was in a great deal of pain. But always that kept me in the position of surrender because there was really nothing else to do. And then I had another recognition of something that was more deeply aware here. And that brought some health back. And that went on for a few years. And then there was again the perception that health was not here again. And so I went through cancer treatment for 4.5 years, 5 years. In and out of hospitals, surgeries, chemo, all of that. And during that period of time, I was forced once again by this wonderful vehicle into silence because I couldn't speak anymore. And so I lost the ability to speak for a couple of years. And this plunged again the awareness itself into a deep silence, in a deep contemplation. And the practice for me became then following Bhagavan's teaching. None of this is real. Show me the real. This was like an insistent demand. And then, I can remember the moment when the real was recognized. And the body began to heal. And now we are here.
So since you had this recognition, you never had to go back to the question, who am I?
One never really needs to go back to the question, who am I? But that doesn't mean that occasionally something doesn't float through awareness that might be, say, related to, for me, it doesn't, on a kind of an individual basis, it really doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it's usually in relation to one of my children. And some concern or some worry of that parent, a lifetime of being a parent will arise. And in that moment, then I will inquire. I will definitely inquire. Who is aware of this? What is happening here? So Bhagavan's teaching is that whenever any remnant of I arose, people would ask him this question, and he would never say whether he did this or not, but he would say, if there is any residual sense of I which arises in the sage or in anyone else for any length of time, inquire. It was not a judgmental thing. It is good, it is bad, it is He simply said, if there's any vestige of I which rises, inquire. And then, of course, he demonstrated this throughout the last years of his life when he was also dealing with cancer and he was slowly going and the body was going away. And he sat silently. And, one would wonder, because he was clearly in a great deal of pain and he refused all medical help and all painkillers and all of that kind of stuff. And he simply sat through the experience, and one would wonder, Did it ever arise? Did he ever once again need to ask the question, but who am I? One suspects not. You know. But who knows? Who knows? And I don't remember what the next part of the question was.
That was it. So 2 questions.
I thought there was a third part in there.
The main question was actually knowing if you had to go back to the question.
Well, yeah, and the answer to that is as long as there's any sense of I which arises, go back to the question. And again, it's not, right? It's not to begin the inquiry in an intense way. It's just to realize that the natural attention has been drawn toward an object. And so there's no interest in the object. So it's not really that the question, who am I, comes up. It's that the attention goes to the object. There's no interest in the object, and it comes and settles back in the heart again. Right? But its primary position, if you will, in the life itself is the heart position. So even if it rises up out of the heart position into some object, it's going to do it for a very short period of time. But this is a natural faculty of mind as an investigator, right? Mind likes to investigate what's happening. So whether that activity is going to start or stop, it doesn't really matter. Bhagavan said, let what comes come, let what goes go. So the activity is always to just rest as the silence of being consciousness in the heart. All right. Thank you all very much for your questions, for your participation, for being here. May you be well. Know that you are happy. That happiness is your nature. Whether the mind interferes and argues about that or not, you are being consciousness and bliss. Remain as that. Hari Om. Tat Sat.